your recommendation.
In India, by the way, I mean, the situation in your specific place, like how is it in your place?
It's okay. It's no problem. We are doing very well.
Yeah, the problem is in the big cities.
Yeah.
Geshe आश्रम में हमारे
Namaskar. Namaskar, Geshe La.
Namaskar. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you, Geshe La.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving so much of your time and your wisdom to all of us. It's so precious. It's so precious.
Whatever I am sharing is borrowed. Borrowed garments never fit well.
For us, this is all coming from you, your wisdom.
Thank you.
Namaste, Geshe Lhakdor.
नमस्ते जी, कैसे हैं?
बस ठीक हूँ. Very happy to be here to listen to your wonderful words of
welcome.
wisdom.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
You are listening from where? Huh? You are muted.
From Delhi.
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक ठीक.
Tashi Jile Rinpoche.
Tashi Dile.
Tashi Jile.
Hello, hello. Igor, hello.
Voilà. Je vais commencer. Ah. We did yesterday also.
Oh my God, it looks like a perfect circle of orange.
I know.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Tashdele. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I trust it's a very good one since we are here in this blessed gathering with Geshe Lhakdor here. And thank you, really, thank you so much for joining us. And Geshe Lhakdor, thank you for making this a blessed gathering. And without further delay, I would like to hand it over to you, Geshe Lhakdor. Please enlighten us.
So my greetings or Tashidelek to everybody. The Tibetan word Tashidelek means may there be auspiciousness and well-being and happiness. So every time you meet somebody in the morning, afternoon, or evening, you greet others by saying, may there be auspiciousness and well-being. Tashidelek. It's almost like the Hindi word Om Swasti, right? So we all clearly know that we all want happiness and not suffering. And not only happiness, but we all want reliable stable, long-lasting happiness. But what we want and what we do, there is a mismatch. There is a discrepancy. Although we want happiness, but we do something which would not bring happiness, but which would bring more problem, more suffering. So how much happiness or reliable happiness you are going to get is primarily dependent upon your mental outlook, your mental attitude. I'm not saying that mind is the only thing, that if you just meditate and change your mind, you don't have to eat food and wear clothes. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is the most important source of happiness, long-lasting happiness, is not outside, but it is within each of us. It has to be obtained from within, from the mind of each of us. So this is extremely important to know for anybody who wants long-lasting happiness. This point must be noted down, because there is so much temptation, so much distraction outside, especially in today's world, that we easily become a victim to the marvels or attractions, seemingly, good kind of attractions. As I have mentioned earlier, that we are all running hither and thither, not only human beings, but ants and birds and everybody running and flying. So if you ask this pertinent question, why everybody is moving, why everybody is running, we are all sentient beings are moving, running in search of peace, in search of stability, in search of security. But as I said, most of the time we fail to get that long-lasting happiness and security because we are searching in the wrong place. So it is important to make it a point that if you really, really want long-lasting happiness, if you're not just talking, but if you want long-lasting happiness, then the real source is from within oneself. That means from one's mind. What kind of mind? A mind which is able to see the reality in its many forms, be it the reality of impermanence, be it the reality of suffering, be it the reality of interdependent origination. So there are many levels and facets of reality. We must accept those reality and adapt our life in accordance with the reality. Death is imminent for all of us, but ordinarily we don't want to talk about death. Even in the so-called many developed countries, the graves, even these days now people even don't, it's difficult to see people dying because they all die in air-conditioned hospitals where visitors are normally not easily allowed. And then the dead body is also disposed in a place a little bit away from the city and town, so that we are not able to see the reality. There's nothing to be scared about death and other problems in life. All this must be understood and recognized, because these are, as I said the other day, these are like the day and night. We need both daylight and also night. Both has its own benefit. So we need to understand the reality in its many forms and many aspects. The more you're able to understand this reality, the more you are prepared for the eventuality when these problems, difficulties, including death comes. You don't get scared. You accept it as a part of life, just like you don't get scared when the night falls. In fact, you will look forward to the night because that is the time for you to sleep peacefully. So like that, you see, both all of these many facets of these realities must be understood. It's really, really important to understand the reality and not to develop unnecessary worry, unnecessary stress, unnecessary fear. Much of the so-called suffering that we experience in our ordinary life is unnecessary suffering, unnecessary problem, unnecessary in two senses. Number one, they are not necessary in the sense because just like Buddha, if you have understood the causes of suffering and have avoided the causes of suffering, you will not have to experience these sufferings. Because we don't do that, therefore you are suffering. So in that sense, you are suffering unnecessarily. Then also because of your lack of proper insight into the many facets of reality, and because of that, when things don't function as you want, of course, then the law of nature doesn't flow. The events don't change according to your wish. They change according to the law of nature. So you need to understand the law of nature. And without understanding that rhythm, the law of nature, when drastic changes happen, you get scared. You develop fear that I might die, or even I might have to move to some other place. What will happen to me? You just come up with so many unnecessary doubts and suspicions, which are not at all realistic, which is not going to help you. So therefore, it is important to develop a realistic point of view, and especially with the understanding of impermanence, which is one of the core teachings of the Buddha. Impermanence basically means changing. And the change that is taking place, whether it is yourself or what is outside of you, the change that is taking place is, the speed of that change is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Right? It is said that in the case of human life, after every 7 years, the brain and the cells and everything that you have undergoes complete change after 7 years. You are totally a different person in that sense, right? So that kind of change takes place because in our daily life, in every moment of our life, changes are taking place. So those major changes doesn't take place at one go. Like for example, aging also. Aging doesn't become overnight. It is not the case that you are, 20 years young man and go to bed, tomorrow morning you wake up as an old man. It doesn't happen like that. Aging comes right from the second moment of the birth, aging has started, right? So therefore it is important to understand this subtle process of changes and adjust your life in accordance with the changes. Understand the nature of change and don't get frightened. Change is not necessarily bad. For example, when we explain impermanence and change, we do give the example of death, but that is not only the example. The other, more cheerful, examples are like, it is because of this change, we get the flexibility. It is because of this change, we are able to achieve enlightenment. It is because of this change, we can remove the negative emotions and cultivate positive emotions. If there's no change, then it is the way things are. There's nothing we can do. We cry, we shout, whatever we do, but nothing can happen. But thank God that it's not like that. If you make an effort in accordance with the law of nature, you can change, you can become better. Now there was a time, according to the classical physics, they used to say that when you grow older, your brain then becomes hardened, and you suffer from dementia, the old man's disease. And but now the modern science, they are talking about neuroplasticity, meaning that even if you're an elderly person, but if you make an attempt and do your meditation training all the time, the brains become flexible. Plasticity. And this is exactly what has been taught in Buddhism for a long, long time. The one thing that is really wonderful is your mind can change all the time, irrespective of your age. But that change is, of course, easier when your mind is more fresh, brain is more fresh, much younger. But so therefore, when you do Dharma practice, it is encouraged to do Dharma practice even you are relatively young. And then with that young age, if you get habituated with this practice for a long time, then even when you become, old, it is not difficult to do that practice. I have myself seen both of the tutors of His Holiness Dalai Lama at a very high age. I've seen them, and I can see their radiance. I can see their eloquence when they give the teaching. And now look at His Holiness Dalai Lama, who is the living example. Now he's 87. And when he gives the teaching, he's really like his mind is fresh and he's laughing and smiling. So these are the products, evident products of sustained practice. So we can all do that. All do it. So that's what I want to say before reading the text, number one. Number two, there are some people who think that if I live a long life, then there is a meaning in human life. If I'm not going to live a long life, or at least if I'm going to die, then there's no meaning in human life. Many people think like that. One day we are going to die. So what is the meaning of human life? I think that is a very stupid way of thinking. Because the meaning of human life is basically happiness, which basically means satisfaction. So therefore, in each and every day, in each and every month, or each and every day of your life, if you live your life in such a way, said that you do something good, which is beneficial to others, which makes other people happy, then you are making each and every hour, every moment, your life meaningful. And life is nothing but, the time that we spend every day. And if you misspend, wrongly, use your life for one day, then one day of your life you have missed, you have misused. So therefore, every day you should be happy. And there are many reasons to be happy. Don't just meditate on on what is lacking, what is not there. Don't keep on just thinking about the pandemic and many other countless sufferings. Those things are there. Those things are there. But think about many good things that you can do. Count the blessings, not the curses. Count the blessings. You are a human being. You are not a dog. You are not a cow. You are not a mosquito. And there are some butterflies which I've seen just live just for one day, right? And then we have many examples of flowers which don't live very long, but that's okay. So long as the flower is there, it just the flower blossoms, and with that fragrance and with that color, it makes many people who see this flower, they feel so happy. So we should be like those flowers. It's not the main thing is not how long you should live, but how you live each and every moment. And in this way, when you live each and every moment, each and every day happy and satisfied, thinking more about the positive things, that also improves your physical and mental health. That also contributes towards the longevity of your life. This is not only taught in Buddhism, but it is now scientifically proved, right? So everything, more or less, is in your hand. It's not in the hand of the government. It is not in the hand of your friends and relatives. You must be your boss, which means your mind is your boss. Train your mind. Make it a positive mind, a mind with compassion, mind with love, mind with wisdom. So if your life is controlled by that mind, which is full of love, full of compassion, full of wisdom, then everything you do will be perfect. It will be good, right? But contrarily, if you let your mind controlled by a mind which is predominantly negative, selfish, stupid, which thinks just about oneself, completely forget others, then it is again sure that you're not going to enjoy your life. You're not going to get the happiness that you want. So therefore, the key question is, ask this question repeatedly, write it on a wall, which will remind you that I want long-lasting happiness. Because we need constant reminder. Otherwise, we get distracted by all these things happening outside, of us. So remind yourself, I want long-lasting happiness. The long-lasting happiness has to come from within my mind. Therefore, I must change my mind from negative to the positive. You call it Buddhist practice, you don't call it, it doesn't really matter. But you are achieving what you want. And what is negative? What is positive? Negative, when we say negative is anything, the human emotion or people or whatever. When we use the word negative, it means anything that is going to bring more suffering, more problem, that is unhealthy, that is negative. Anything that is going to bring you more peace, more happiness, then that is positive. So now therefore compare like anger and patience. Which one do you think will bring you more happiness? Which one will bring you more suffering? You don't have to, you can read Buddhist texts and other literatures, but the most important thing is use your human brain and see which one will bring you more happiness in your life, anger or patience, for example, right? Based on your life's experience. In your life, just like anybody, we all have, experienced anger many times. It is 100% sure. I don't think there will be anybody who never got angry. Very rare phenomena. So we have that experience. So recall, what have you done on those moments when you get angry? And also recall those moments, what did you experience when you were patient, when you were calm? So from that you can learn. From that you can develop the conviction, which one is really good to me and which one is really unhealthy and bad to me. So through that kind of, not only listening to the teaching, but through this kind of personal life's experience, now you should develop some conviction that these are good, I'm going to befriend these positive emotions. These are not good, I'm going to distance myself from negative emotions. It's not easy for us to, at one go, to banish all the negative emotions and at one go develop all the positive emotions. That is not possible. But through repeated conviction, practice, habituation, it is 100% sure that you can reduce these negative emotions, increase these positive emotions. And once you are able to do that, it is really not so important how many times you visit a temple. The temple, the real temple, is now you have cultivated within your mind. Because if you look carefully, all the teachings, the major religious traditions of the world, they talk about love. They talk about practice of patience and things like that, right? So we all need peace, we all need calmness. So that can be cultivated through one's own individual effort, and not, we cannot get it just like somebody giving you the injection of compassion or injection of loving kindness. That is not possible. That's not possible. So therefore, oneself is responsible for that. With this experience of pandemic also, it is not, the virus is clearly telling all of us that all this, unhealthy outcomes that you are experiencing today from COVID-19 is because of unhealthy human behavior. Not only this pandemic, but it is said many of the diseases and infections and epidemics or pandemics that we've experienced for so many years, primarily almost like 65% of those human problems come because of our unhealthy relation with the environment and unhealthy relation with the animals. So look at that. Look at that. Because unfortunately, human beings have tended to think, because of this big brain and human intelligence, now we have started thinking that we are the boss of the universe, and the others are only to be mistreated, consumed just for money, And it is because of this. The habitats of all these animals are destroyed. They are killed for meat, for skin, for medicines, right? And in some places, even for this COVID-19, they have started, extracting the bile from the bear. And this bear, some of this bear, they are imprisoned for 30, 40 years, and almost on a daily basis, taking out that bile from that bear. And many of this bear, they suffer from cancer, they become blind, and horrible stories are there. If you just look, whether it is the wet market, what is being done in the wet market, or whether it's the animal farm, horrible situation. And we are experiencing, we are getting the result of what we are doing. So we need to change our habit, minimize this destruction. You see, it's really, really important for our own well-being, even if you don't have love and compassion for other animals, but at least even for your own well-being. But we are so short-sighted, so narrow-minded, unfortunately, that we don't think beyond our own selfish, fulfillment. So that is the result of what we are seeing today. And now some of the scientists have started asking the question, how long human beings are going to live on this planet? Because according to Darwin's teaching of evolution, those beings who are able to adapt to the change can survive. So human beings, are we able to adapt to the changing situation? Are we able to adapt with the needs of the environment? So it's a big question, which we all need to ask. So to make a long story short, what I'm really saying is, unless we develop love and compassion and maintain a harmonious, healthy relation with other human beings, other animals, environment, and so forth, now many scientists, they are warning that a worst pandemic can come. And actually warnings have been given earlier also. Before COVID-19, we had MERS and SARS, and then from the animal farming, we have all this, bird flu and mad cow disease, and so many things we had, And during all those occasions, people, scientists and others have warned, but we don't pay any attention. Unless you personally started suffering, we don't pay attention to these things. So it is, it's very, very, very unfortunate. We need to care for our future younger generation, for their well-being, for the well-being of the whole planet, right? So therefore, the only solution, in other words, the main solution is not injection. Injection is a temporary solution, right? The long-term solution is, with our human, changed positive behavior, how can we heal the planet? How can we heal the environment? How can we heal the, the globe, the earth? And how can we maintain positive relationship with each other, right? So this is a big issue. Really big issue. And it is because of this, when you elect a leader also, you need to be very, very careful. Look at some of the leaders we have in the world today, unfortunately. So I don't want to go long there, but for the wise people, it is just a hint is enough, so I'm just giving you the hint. So therefore, at the end of the day, what I'm really saying is, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, unless we change our attitude, unless we change our behavior, we are not going to get long-lasting happiness and peace, right? And once you develop these internal qualities, then even if there's a lot of unhealthy problems, difficulties, still you will be able to deal with these problems. Still you will be able to remain fearless and stable, and not only you can maintain that tranquility and peace, you can also be able to help many, many others, right? So therefore, much is dependent upon how we do, how we live. So therefore, these Buddhist teachings are not for talking primarily, but they are primarily for practicing. Unless we practice, it is like reading the medical prescription and not eating the medicine, right? It is just like visiting a restaurant and reading the menu and not ordering the food and not eating it. So how are you going to, remove your hunger, remove your disease, right? And that practice is the most difficult thing. But when we talk about practice, it is not just visualizing a deity, all these things can come later, which has its own benefit. But what I'm really practicing means, there are many things we know already that I should not be doing this. There are many things we already know I should be doing this. So do that. You know it now. You don't need a fresh lesson from somebody. There are so many things I should not be doing this. So stop doing that. Or at least minimize doing that. There are many things that I should be doing this. So start doing that. As I said the other day, even if you make great development in one practice, like the development of compassion, you will already excel. You'll already change. You'll already change it just by developing one quality like love to other sentient beings, compassion to other sentient beings. The amount of peace, the amount of happiness that you will get, I cannot explain it. I'm not talking about many, many qualities. Even if you develop one quality, genuine concern for others, genuine love for others. Through that, not only you will be able to remove the problems of many other people, maintain harmony, but your mind will be filled with, it's nothing but natural to human mind. And that's why the Buddha said, everybody has Buddha nature. Everybody has Buddha nature, right? I have visited many places, many countries, and met many people. And generally speaking, I found all of these people basically very good people. Majority of the people are very, very good people. So the only thing is many of them don't know what to practice, right? Or many of them know, but they don't practice. That is the only problem. So therefore, stick to one thing. You can call it specialization. Month of meditation on compassion, month of meditation on love, month of meditation on patience, or week of meditation on love, whatever you call it, just to, make it interesting. You do that and start doing that, and then you can see how much benefit you can give to others and to yourself. So it is for such purposes of developing the positive qualities within us, we are reading this wonderful text by Atisha, and we have already finished chapter 5. So today we'll read chapter 6, where the lines start by saying, declare your faults, do not find others' mistakes, conceal your qualities, and reveal those of the others. So this in this chapter 6, the title of this chapter says that all blame goes to one. All blame goes to one. That is the name of the chapter. All blame goes to one. Now, all blame goes to one. In order to remove this blame, which goes to one means, all blame goes to one means one that all blame or all faults and mistakes comes because of your thinking just about yourself and forgetting the well-being of others. So that is the fault. So blame goes to that self-grasping, that self-cherishing, right? So therefore, now to change that negative habit of seeing oneself as the most important and relegating others to the second, third, fourth, fifth position, or even not caring about that, that's the problem. Now you need to change it. So in Buddhism, we have a practice called exchanging oneself for others, right? Exchanging oneself for others means for the time, right now we are almost all the time thinking about me, I, me and mine, I, me and mine all the time. Now it is scientifically proved, and they say that people who make a lot of self-references, I, me and mine, they're prone to all kinds of illnesses, including heart attack. This is so because when you just think about I, me and mine, or related to yourself and what belongs to you, then your focus becomes very narrow. That is called narrow-mindedness. When your focus becomes very narrow, when you develop this narrow-minded way of seeing things, then even if you encounter a minor problem, small problem, you tend to see that problem as if it is unsurmountable. You tend to see it as if you are the only person on the planet who is suffering. You are unable to relate it to many others who are suffering much, much more than you. So you are again, as I said, you are again unnecessarily suffering because of this self-cherishing attitude, narrow-mindedness. So therefore, it is not good for you. So therefore, now you widen your mental perspective. Don't just think about yourself, right? Think. I'm not saying don't think about yourself. I'm saying don't just think about yourself and ignore others. Now think more about others, their well-being, because at the end of the day, what you want is long-lasting happiness, right? And that long-lasting happiness will come by helping others, by developing harmonious relationship with others. And that is why His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, if you want to be selfish, be wisely selfish. Be wisely selfish. Our ordinary way of selfishness is stupid way of selfishness, because you just think about yourself and forget others, ignore others. And the end result is you get depression, you suffer from loneliness, which is rampant today in the so-called developed modern world. I don't need to elaborate this. So instead of this, if you think more about others' well-being, as His Holiness says, your inner door will open. And you will feel as if you are freed from a prison. So don't unnecessarily suffer in this self-imprisonment of thinking just about yourself and completely ignore others. So therefore, we need to change this die-hard habit of thinking just about oneself and ignoring others. So for that change, he is saying, declare your faults. Number one, declare your faults means ordinarily you are fond of highlighting the faults of others, but not yourself. Even if somebody highlights your fault, you will get crazy. How dare you, highlight my faults as if you are perfect, right? So now change that attitude. Change that attitude. Declare your faults, because as a spiritual practitioner, as somebody who wants to, proceed through this spiritual practice of transforming yourself from negative to the positive, what is important? Changing negative from negative to the positive means removing your faults, which bring suffering. Faults means anger, jealousy, hatred, all these shortcomings that you have. So unless you declare it, unless you make it a point to remove it, you will never become better. If you get stuck with this addiction, I call it addiction. We are addicted to all these negative emotions, and you understand the meaning of addiction so well. We're addicted to oneself. We're addicted to all these negative emotions. So unless you remove that addiction, you cannot be free. You cannot be free. So if you want to be free, you need to get rid of these addictions. So declare your faults. That's your main duty. Do not find others' mistakes. Others, he's not saying others have no mistakes, just like use yourself. They also have faults, they also have mistakes. But your main job is to find your faults and remove it. It is not your main duty to highlight the faults of others. Now, this statement is very pertinent because ordinarily, as I said earlier, we are very fond of highlighting the faults of others, but we are fond of hiding our own fault as if we are very good, perfect. The way I wear my clothes is perfect. The way I comb my hair is perfect. The way I speak is perfect. And normally, if I ask you the question, is anger good or bad? Normally, people say it's bad. But when you yourself get angry, then again you try to justify it. Yes, anger is in general bad, but I have a reason to get angry. So this is how you try to defend everything that you have, including the faults, shortcomings. So that's why we never improve, right? So therefore, do not find others' mistakes, right? Conceal your qualities. And similarly, if you have some good qualities, physical good qualities, mental good qualities, you are very fond of displaying it, right? Proclaiming it, declaring it. Look, I did this. I'm clever. I did this. I got my PhD. I'm the best one in the, in the sport. Look how nice I look. Look at this, my jacket. How wonderful it is. Things like that. You're very fond of displaying it. So here it says that is not very good. What is important is conceal your qualities. Don't brag. Don't brag. Don't talk so highly about your minimum small qualities. Conceal it. Inside, you should have all these wonderful qualities, which is always helping you. As I said the other day, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, they say your qualities should be like a burning butter lamp in a pot. So if there is a burning butter lamp in the pot, inside the pot, it's full of light, full of illumination, full of peace, full of tranquility, but you will hardly see that light outside, right? Of course, the light should help others, But here in this context, what it's saying is don't make a show of it. Don't display it unnecessarily, right? Conceal your qualities and reveal those of the others. And when you see good things done by others, then you should like pat the back of that person and say, how wonderful, you've done this, so good. And this also normally we don't do, right? When we see some other people getting a good salary, much, much higher than you, instead of rejoicing, you might get jealousy, saying, how come that he's getting such a, high salary and we are poor me, I'm not getting anything, things like that, you see. So rejoice. If somebody is successful, rejoice. If somebody is doing something good, just as we do our kids, when the kids, they do something good, we parents, the elderly people, they say, oh, wonderful. Do the same thing with the elderly people also, the so-called educated people also, because from the Buddha's parlance, all of us are like small kids. Doesn't matter how many PhDs you have, how much money, bank balance you have, but still the way you are dealing with your life, the way you are continuously developing your negative emotions, you are still small kid, innocent kid. You're not moving in the right direction, right? So therefore, rejoice and reveal those of the others, right? Give up wealth and respect. Give up wealth and respect means we all need wealth. But here give up means primarily don't just think that accumulation of wealth is more important than your happiness and peace. Accumulation of wealth is more important than your life, than human friendship, right? In the case of wealth, even if you are like billionaire, if you have a lot of money, but if you are deprived of this human affection, human love, good friends, this accumulation of wealth will not express any love, any affection, any compassion to you, right? And then, of course, you need to understand the fact that when we came into this world, we came with nothing. And finally, when we leave this world, we are not going to take anything. So why so much fuss and behavior? And especially in today's world, much of the wealth of the whole world is owned by only, I think, 11% of people. The whole, wealth of the world is, the majority of it is owned by 11% of rich, so-called rich people. Again, I'm not trying to be jealous with this person, these people, but what I'm saying is, if you are hoarding all this wealth and not able to help those who are in need, what is the fun of you having it? What is the fun of you having it? If you're wealthy, wonderful, it's good. If you have, especially if you've earned that wealth through just means, by being honest, then you deserve it. But then there's no point just putting so much wealth unless you use it, unless you benefit many other people, right? So therefore, in the Bodhisattva practice, when whatever wealth you have, having the wealth is not the problem. The important thing is whatever accumulation of wealth you have, you need to think this wealth that I have, this money that I have, don't belong to me. Already mentally you dedicate it. This belongs to others. Meaning that as and when the occasion arises, you are ready to share it. And the real happiness and joy, you'll get it by sharing it, not just storing it, not putting it in a bank, right? So therefore, and then also much of the unhealthy relationships that we get is because of running too much after money and wealth. Divorces, killing and shooting, the countries fighting each other over oil or whatever, all this is because of unnecessary greed towards wealth. Give up wealth and respect. Respect. Some people are very fond of receiving respect, If you're addressed as sir or madam and this and that, honorable this and that, you get very happy. But if you, as a genuine practitioner, these are just hollow words. Who are you is what you practice, not how much respect you get from people. And then the so-called respect people give to others is not necessarily always genuine, right? If to somebody who is powerful, even if that person is a dictator, there are many who will show respect externally, Inside, they may be cursing that person for his quick death, right? So it's not necessarily genuine respect, right? And then for you, if you hanker after wealth and after respect, these are actually some of the greatest obstacles to your spiritual practice. For a spiritual practitioner, you should be free from craving. You should be free from distraction. These are all distractions. These are all obstacles. And as Shantideva very eloquently says in his Bodhisattva way of life, if somebody praises you, don't get happy because there are many others who are defaming you. If some people are saying unpleasant things against you, don't get dejected because there are also many others who are praising you. So in this way, you should just maintain the balance of your mind. Don't get too concerned about what people say. You are what you are. You are not what other people say. So have this confidence in yourself, in your life. And don't become a puppet in the hand of other people. And if you do that, you will have to lead a miserable life because this person will say this person will say that. How are you going to try to adapt you and change your way of life and thinking according to what other people say? You are not here in this world to dance at the tunes of other people's wishes, right? So maintain your integrity and get rid of those things which is not good for you, for your well-being, for your happiness, which are distractions. Get rid of those distractions, right? So that's what he's saying. Give up wealth and respect, and forever give up arrogance and fame. That means then, as we already more or less discussed, and if you have a little bit more wealth, if you have a little bit more knowledge, if you're a little bit more clever, then we have again this tendency to become arrogant, right? Arrogant. So arrogance is really like a fully inflated balloon. In the case of a fully inflated balloon, if you try to put water on that inflated balloon, the water will not stay there. So similarly, if you act like that inflated balloon, then the knowledge, which is like water, will not stay in your mind because you are arrogant, you are puffed up, you're inflated, and you start thinking that I know everything. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. And many people keep on saying that, yeah, I know, without even listening. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. They don't know. Right? Nature has given us 2 ears, only 1 mouth. That means listen more, speak less. But we hardly listen. Keep on talking the little that we know. And the real knowledge has to go into the brain through your ears. So therefore, we don't have that listening power, right? So if you get puffed up, inflated with arrogance, there's no room for humility. Without sense of humility, there is no room for receiving knowledge, receiving good qualities. Arrogance and fame. So fame is again, I mean, you can easily understand this. Name and fame, they are again ephemeral. They're ephemeral. Number one, the so-called name and fame are designations. They're ephemeral. Today you may be famous, tomorrow you may be in the prison. And this is something that we read in the newspaper all the time. Somebody is very powerful today, president, prime minister. Then there is a change of the government, and the next time the president is in the prison, prime minister is in the prison, you see. So therefore, the great Buddhist practitioners, they always say, they're observing a low level, observing a low place is actually the step towards reaching the highest place. The more you don't care about personal wealth, the more you don't care about your respect, the more you are humble and not arrogant, the more you are not concerned about fame, people will naturally regard you as a wonderful, amazing person. It is so funny that many of these people who are dying to get their name and fame don't understand this basic qualities that is really needed to become famous and to become to get their respect. We don't do that. We just try to get respect by money or force, things like that, and which doesn't work in the long run. So instead of this unhealthy practices and have less desire, and which I've already explained the other day. Desire is really like a fuel that will further infuriate the fire, further produce a conflagration of fire. It is the desire, it is the attachment that is destroying the wealth of the world today, right? The bushfires that we see everywhere, the flooding that we see everywhere, the tsunami that we see here and there, all this is a result of human greed. So here when we use the word desire basically here means attachment. And ordinary desire we all need. So there can be a positive desire, negative desire. Positive desire means the desire to become Buddha, the desire to improve. So those kind of desires are healthy desire. It is okay. So here when he says have less desire, he's talking about the negative desire, the attachment, by which you never get contented and always keep on saying more, more, I want more, more. And it is because of this tendency to have more and more, we are completely destroying this whole planet. And that is another reason why we should focus more on internal spiritual development than on external material development. The clear, simple reason is, in the case of external material development by definition means physical development. And the source of that material physical development is material, the environment, the natural resources, the water, the trees, the minerals. And these external resources, being physical, they have limitation. So how can you make unlimited progress through limited resources? You will only end up destroying the very source of your material development, which we are now seeing today, right? So there, where there is limitation, we should have contentment. The world must have contentment. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama very accurately talks about this by saying that the so-called progress, every country thinking that the country should develop its the gross GDP or whatever you call it, every year, His Holiness says this is impractical. It is simply impossible. And so long as the real kind of measure of judgment of the development is, you should see the citizens, the individuals that make up the nation, look at their standard. If the individual members of the society, if their standard in terms of food, in terms of clothing, in terms of housing, it is good, then you should say it's good. We are a developed country, happy and peaceful, right? Don't just count the GDP growth, and it is impossible because that so-called development, as I said, has to come from natural resources. So instead, you should focus more on internal development, spiritual development. In the realm of internal spiritual development, sky is the limit. You can make as much progress as you want. The government will not bother you, right? And you, through your spiritual practice of meditation and so forth, nobody will come to you and say that you are encouraging other people's domain, right? It's your domain. You own it. Nobody else share your mental space. So there you can make a lot of progress. Develop loving kindness as much as possible, compassion as much as possible, patience as much as possible. Therefore, in Buddhism, these internal qualities are spoken as the most important precious wealth, internal wealth, which thieves cannot steal, robbers cannot rob, government cannot put a tax on that, levy a tax on that. Imagine, look at this. You can be the king. You can be the king. You can be the real boss. It's all there. It's all possible. But there, unfortunately, because this thing called mind is invisible kind of energy, non-physical, colorless, shapeless energy, therefore nobody bothers about it. And we end up running towards material accumulation. And as I said the other day, it is the much of the sufferings that we are experiencing today is because of internal poverty. Internal poverty. Right? So therefore, have less desire and be content. Be content. How much you need? Honestly speaking, how much you need? You don't need like 5 cars because somebody has 5 cars. Right? Like in my institute, in the library, we don't have any vehicle. All other institutes, they have vehicles and things like that. We don't have a one. But we are fine. We are fine. Right? So how much is how much? As the other day I cited this quotation from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, there is enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. And it is the greed which is destroying the planet today. And for you, not only planet, for you also. The more you have, the more you will have problems. Nothing comes value free. The more you have, the more you will have worry about the taxation, the storage, and then the thieves and the robbers and burglars. And that's why the famous saint Milarepa, he said, I'm so happy. And even Buddha also said the same thing. And they said, I'm very happy because I have nothing. Imagine. They said, I'm very happy because I have nothing. Now, in our case, it's the other way. I'm unhappy because I have nothing, which means I want more and more. Okay, you should have something, but how much? How much is how much? How much you really need, right? So therefore, we are kind of caught by this example of cork in the big giant wheel. When somebody said when the big giant wheel moves, then the cork is helplessly, the cork has to move. I don't trust that. I don't trust that statement. Even if you are a small cog in the giant wheel, then the cog should have the capacity not to cooperate, come out from that giant wheel, and probably the giant wheel will stop. Right? So all of us, how much, how effective it is, how visible, the effect of what you do or not, but you need to have that kind of confidence and conviction and determination not to cooperate those wrong ways of life, those wrong things, which makes others unhappy, which makes yourself unhappy. Because if you follow this trend of running after money and materialism, not only it will destroy the planet, but you will also become a slave to the money. Slave, not the owner. You can call it owner, but actually you are slave. Slave of the wealth that you've accumulated. Right? 6 times cleaning the car, 20 times mopping the house. I mean, countless things, really. Countless things. So I'm not trying to turn the clock back, but what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you should become beggar, bunch of beggar, but all I'm saying is, yes, through your hard work, you earn something. It is good, but have contentment. And if possible, not just keep on working, but also find some time for yourself. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, it's almost like 50-50, or he sometimes says 50% you devote to your work and making money, and 50% you spend for your spiritual exercise, spiritual practices, which is very, very healthy, because you have 2 things, body and mind. For the body you need food, for the mind you need different kind of food, which is spirituality. So you need that also, right? So balance yourself with these 2 practices, for the body and for the mind. So in short, in this text, what he has primarily mentioned is we are entrapped in this cycle of existence through ignorance and then accumulation of negative emotions. So here he briefly explains the 12 links of dependent origination. And it is because of this, getting stuck in the cycle of the 12 links of dependent origination, which is primarily rooted in the self-grasping, seeing things as having inherent independent existence. Therefore, we are having these countless problems. So therefore, we need to cut this chain of cycle of existences whose root is ignorance. Now, ignorance here is not just lack of understanding of shunyata, but misconception of the reality. Now, this is a big statement. Misconception of reality means the reality is that everything is like as is explained somewhere in some other text. For example, the Buddha says, with reference to the 5 aggregates, the Buddha says, perception is like a mirage. Conceptual fabrication is like a plantain tree. And cognizance is like a magical display. However you reflect on it or carefully examine the matter, to whomever looks at it with care, sorry, I missed something. So sorry, I read this again. As was pointed out by the kinsman of the sun means Buddha. So the Buddha said, appearance, sometimes they use the word form. Form or appearance is like a ball of foam, and feeling is like a water bubble. Perception is like a mirage. Conceptual fabrication is like a plantain tree, and cognizance is like a magical display. Right? So however you reflect on it or carefully examine the matter, to whomever looks at it with care. So this is the point. Normally we don't look with it with care. But he says, just like a scientist or a meditator, if you look each of this, physical form and feeling and so forth, if you look at it carefully, then you will find each of these aggregates are empty and hollow. Empty and hollow. As for the body, the one with extensive insight has taught, that means Buddha, taught 3 matters concerning its abandonment. Seeing this, you will cast away your physical form. The body, when devoid of vitality, heat, and cognizance, lies there, discarded, food for some other being, without volition. Such is the continuum, this illusory charmer of the childlike. Although it is said that continuum is a slayer, no substance is found here. That is how you should regard the aggregates of being, day and night, energetically, ardently, mindfully. You should dissolve all bonds, make a refuge for yourself, and live as if your head were ablaze, yearning for the way that is never vanishing. That means this is because of this fragile situation of this psychophysical aggregate, because of this mirage-like situation of the psychophysical aggregate, there is no sense to develop too much grasping attachment to this because of their hollow nature, meaning that if you really try to pinpoint, you will not be able to find anything. Now, this is not only what is said by Buddhism. I was reading few articles by other scientists and other thinkers. So there is one by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and in this book by the person, A General Theory of Love, he says, dream delivers us to dream. Dream delivers us to dream, and there is no end to illusion. Life is a train of moods, like a string of beads, and as we pass through them, they prove to be many-colored lenses which paint the world their own hue. Temperament is the iron wire on which the beads are strung. Like, so it depends on the environment, your mood, your temperament, the so-called habit, the so-called identity. It's dependent on many fluctuating, changing situations, events, So what as true to the Buddhist teaching, what I think he is also saying, there are many other more quotations, I'm trying to relate it to those statements by the modern thinkers and scientists also. So they're all basically saying that if you really try to pinpoint that the so-called person, the so-called I, towards which we develop all these unhealthy negative emotions, you will not be able to lay your hand on that so-called I or the person. It's just a designation, dependent upon the 5 psychophysical aggregate, dependent upon the changing environment, situation, and things like that. Right? And when we don't understand this, then we think there is a solid I, which must be fed, which must be defended, which must be clothed, for which we should fight with others, things like that. So it's really like a dream. The best example is a dream. Now, dream doesn't mean that it is not there. Dream is there. It also doesn't mean that you don't get happiness and suffering in dream. You get it, right? In dream also you suffer. In dream also you get happiness. In dream also people laugh, things like that. But then when you wake up, whatever has happened in the dream, you don't give much attention to that, saying, oh, this is just a dream, It's good you dreamed winning like $1 billion, but it was a dream. Unfortunately, when you wake up, there's nothing, right? So what we are experiencing in our daily life is another form of dream. This ordinary dream we are able to know even as an ordinary person, but the dream that we are having in the so-called life, this is understood only by highly enlightened beings like Buddha, where he's able to say this is also another dream. If you don't understand this, then normally I explain this by saying, for example, if you don't understand this, now then you should recall the years that you spent in the preceding life. If you're a gentleman or gentlewoman of 30 years old, in the past 30 years, you've experienced so many ups and downs. You experienced happiness, you've experienced suffering, you fought with others, you loved others, so many things, your dramas, that you have staged, right? 30 years, long history. But today, if you look back and look at that 30 years of your experience, it is exactly like the dream that you had last night. And the rest of your life will also go like that. So why you develop so much grasping to that dream life experience? Just enjoy. Don't grasp. So we are not saying there is no I. There is I, but there is no I, which is you thought. You thought there is independently existing I, inherently existing I, self-supporting I, substantially existing I. There's no such I. It's a conglomeration of many things. It's a designation, so many things. So it's not worth developing that grasping. So that is the main point that is explained in this text. Okay, I'm about to do. Then I will conclude this by saying, so because of this, don't develop this unhealthy qualities like excessive attachment to wealth, respect, fame, things like that. But instead, you should have less desire, be content, and repay deeds of kindness. Repay deeds of kindness. In the West, also, people today talk so much about the importance of gratitude. So it's more or less something like that. Whoever does even a minor, small thing, be thankful. Be thankful to the planet. Be thankful to the people, whether you know them or not know them. You are surviving due to the direct and indirect, work of many of these people on this planet. So therefore, remember their kindness. And then especially, of course, the kindness of here, he talks about the kindness of your Lama, who shows you the path, who gives you the teaching. And then your parents, who give you this birth, who give you this life. Remember their kindness, right? And meditate on love and compassion and stabilize bodhicitta. And this I have explained earlier, that the one of the most important cause for becoming Buddha or enlightenment is bodhicitta, which is basically a wish to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. And in order to develop that bodhicitta, you need to develop compassion, which wishes that others are without suffering. In order to develop that compassion, you need to first develop loving kindness, where you're able to see others very close to your heart, where you're able to think that may they meet with happiness, right? So these are the practices that one wants to do. Okay, so I think I have finished the title and also finished the time also finished. So I stop here. If there are any questions, please, I welcome the questions.
So, Gishla, Natasha, she has two questions from your Russian students watching from Russia on YouTube. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Gisela, so we're so pleased to listen to you. We have 60 plus students listening to the Russian translation on YouTube. Unfortunately, they don't see you. They only hear Julia translating. So the questions they asked, first one, speaking of this idea of blaming yourself, not others, how to, if you do like this, how to avoid burning out? And the second part of this question, when you maintain, you keep your practice, how to not let other people to use you, to abuse you?
Mm-hmm. So the answer is, when I say the blame goes to one, I'm not talking about the person. The blame goes to one means the self-grasping, the self-cherishing that one has within oneself, the blame goes to that. So it's not saying that you as a person is bad, negative, not like that. The self-grasping ignorance that you have, the blame goes to that one, right? The blame goes to one means primarily that one, not the person. The self-grasping, the ignorance, because it is from that self-grasping ignorance, all other negative emotions and sufferings arise. So therefore, the real enemy, the core enemy is that self-grasping. So blame goes to that self-grasping. That's the thing. Then second, when you practice, in Buddhism, we say there should be a fine balance of development of the head and the heart. That means development of loving kindness, compassion on the one hand, and also development of wisdom, okay? Which primarily means it's important to develop love and compassion, but love and compassion and bodhicitta are not developed without any understanding. They must be developed with a precise understanding why I should develop these qualities and how I should maintain this and how through this practice I should become strong and not weak, right? So therefore this, practices on the side of the method or skillful means, as we call it, must be supported by head or wisdom. So with that head and wisdom, you will be able to remain kind and compassionate to others, but will not become a doormat of other people, right? Because you have that wisdom, right? If you don't have that wisdom, then you are right. If you in the name of practicing love and compassion, you become humble, you become weak, and then people will bully you, they will exploit you, they will take advantage of you. No. There's a great misunderstanding. Yesterday I was giving a similar talk to the Tibetan teachers. And there also I mentioned this very clearly, that once you develop this, in the case of practice, for example, non-violence, we say that non-violence is not absence of violence, but active practice of compassion. Meaning that practice of non-violence developed based on proper understanding of why we need to develop that compassionate attitude, why we need to develop that non-violent way of life, based on proper understanding. So the main point that I'm making is the genuine, not the facsimile practice, the genuine development of compassion and love makes you the strongest person, make you a strong person, not a weak person. But if your understanding is not complete, it's facsimile, then it might make you weak, right? Now, for example, in the practice of nonviolence, as did by Gandhi, as did by Buddha, without resorting to any weapon, without resorting to any arms, they were able to defend themselves. They were able to help many others, right? You are able to face that wrongdoing in the face of weapons and beatings and things like that. That is strength. If you resort to arms and bully other people by using nuclear bombs or, knives or guns, basically you're weak. You're weak. And also the interesting story is, the more that person runs out of reason, the more they will yell, the more they will become angry, because there's no reason for them. So the only thing is use their physical power, just like the lions and tigers. Lions and tigers can't use reason. So only thing they jump and kill and try to bite each other, right? The more you have reason to explain, the more you're honest and just, you don't have to flare out. You can explain the situation calmly. So that's the difference. So therefore, the main point I'm saying is Buddhist practice must be done both with the head and the heart. Okay.
Gisela, Natasha has one more question, I think. Natasha,
Okay.
do you
Yes.
have? Okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Geshe. Last time I didn't have a chance to ask this question, so I would like to do it today. So the question was actually, why in our mind we have so many bad qualities and so little good qualities? It seems.
It seems. Read this.
I'm just adding this.
If you want to know more, read this book. Can you see this book?
Not fully, Gisela. Can you lift it up? Like, yes. Yeah, almost. Yes, Gisela, why Buddhism is true. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a very good explanation is given here, But I'm going to explain this a little bit. Biologically, we are not made for enlightenment. Okay, we are not made biologically to become Buddha. Okay, although in Buddhism we say we have the capacity to become Buddha, but biologically speaking, we are not made to become a Buddha. We are made to live and to reproduce. So in order to live, in order to reproduce, anything that obstructs your life, then you will fight against it. So anger is necessary, right? And for reproduction, attachment is necessary, right? So biologically speaking, as in science, they say fight and flight response. You know that very well, fight and flight response. That comes on the background of our, biological process of living, where for reproduction, you need greed to defend yourself, to defend your territory, you need anger and things like that, right? But in this book is also, it looks like very well knowledged, Buddhist, probably student or practitioner, and also knows science well. It looks like that. Very beautiful book. But not only in this book, in other, write-ups also I read about this, because this is a very, very important question. I asked this question to many people and they don't have very clear answer. So by reading all of these books, I was able to make this conclusion that there are two levels. One, biologically, physically speaking, you need to struggle, you need to live. So for that, you need this attachment and then anger and things like that, right? So therefore, scientists, they say all these emotions are, they're necessary. None of these emotions are negative. That's the scientific point of view, because they're primarily talking about the biological needs. But in Buddhism, we talk about negative emotions and positive emotions because we are talking about further development. So in this book, it also says that is the biological, situation, but this does not mean to say that you cannot develop your mind. If you use it, you can develop your mind to a limitless state. Okay.
Gisela, next is Jackie. Jackie had a question. Jackie, I hope, are you here?
Yeah, hello. I was wondering, during the pandemic, when we're not interacting with as many people as normal, how do you suggest any practices of love and compassion? Because I tend to think that you need someone else to practice with. So what can we do if we're interacting with not so many people these days?
No, in Buddhism, for serious Buddhist practitioners, remaining in solitude is highly recommended. So therefore, this virus has given us a very wonderful opportunity to distance ourselves or isolate ourselves. Because now, since you are not able to contact other people regularly as you used to do, Now you have this wonderful occasion to be with yourself. In other words, I can say that much of the problem that we are having is also because you are not in touch with yourself. You are in touch with other people and you thought happiness comes from there, peace comes from there, practice comes from there. There is an element of truth there, but it is not completely true, right? And for contacting other people, you have mobile phone, you have all these technological accessories, but is there any technology which helps you contact yourself? The only way to keep in touch with yourself is your personal practice through meditation, loving kindness, and so forth. And that is possible when you are less free from, distractions, from obstacles. And that is possible when you remain in isolation, remain in solitude. Right? So this is a wonderful opportunity. So as I said earlier, yes, you are right that sometimes, you need to ask questions and contact some people who know more than you, who have more practice than you. That is always possible. But again, it may not be so easy as before, but still these days you can through, internet and others, you can also ask these questions. And then more important thing is many things that you already know, this is the occasion to practice by yourself. Okay.
Okay, Kishla, we have one last question from Dimple. Dimple, can you please unmute yourself? And if you find it difficult to do that, you can just raise your hand and I will send you a request.
Hello, Geshe. This is my first time on your session live. I had a question. I had two questions actually, which I'll ask as one question. What are your thoughts on goals and consequences? How does one, if everything must work towards what is good for humanity, how does one set one's goals? Because that's going to change, the milestone's going to change every time. And what are your thoughts on consequences? For instance, a practitioner or a person who goes on on the lines of what you're saying, practices being that way, but the aggression doesn't stop. For instance, if you look at the Russia, Putin, or whoever, I know there are Russians listening, but for instance, the aggression doesn't stop. How does one work around? What are your thoughts on consequences? So goals and consequences. Those are my two questions.
Well, this goals and consequences, again, it can be seen in two ways. One is like for a Buddhist practitioner, the goal is enlightenment or Buddhahood, which is almost like an impossible task. I'm not saying completely impossible, but almost like impossible task. But this does not mean to say that you will not start getting happiness when you start moving towards that enlightenment. With each step towards that goal, you become happier and calmer and more peaceful. So you already, start getting the, benefit or consequences of those practices. So therefore, what I'm saying is probably you should have this approach that is taught. Compare the long-term goal and the short-term goal, okay? And if there is a conflict between the long-term goal and short-term goal, then it's always better to aim for the long-term goal and pay less attention to the short-term goal. In other words, I'm saying if there is a conflict between long-term happiness and short-term happiness, then you should pay less attention to the short-term happiness because it's important for you to get long-term happiness. If you are getting both the short-term happiness and long-term happiness, okay, wonderful. If your goal or happiness is not good in the long run and also not good now, then of course, don't do it. So through that way. But then again, it depends in what context you are talking about the goal and consequences. Because in today's world, I think I mentioned earlier also, in today's world, in the name of professionalism and things like that, people set all kind of goals, many goals which is impossible for them to achieve. And then still, people, keep on listening to each other and then don't achieve anything. They struggle, and in the end, they get tired and don't get anything. I'll tell you this a short story of of a deaf frog. There is a story of a frog which was completely deaf, surrounded by many frogs which were all, so this deaf frog, because he is unable to hear anything, he started climbing a tree. Then all those other frogs, they said, no, what are you doing? You are a frog. You're just a frog. You can't climb that tree. They all started shouting and saying all kind of things, nasty things as we normally do. But this frog, because the frog is deaf, he did not hear anything. He just continued his journey. He successfully climbed the tree because he did not pay attention to what others are saying. You see? So in our kind of setting the goals, we normally don't take time to think properly and set the goal properly, comparing the long-term, consequences, short-term consequences, things like we just listen to the so-called professionals, asking the opinion of professionals is good, but at the end, it is you who is going to struggle, who is going to suffer. So you need to spend time and think carefully. What is it that you really want? And then many times people just keep on changing the goals. You see, they study, I think I mentioned this earlier, they study, for example, say to become a teacher or a doctor after working for studying for many years. Then finally they become doctor and they are qualified and they give a proper job. This is a result of having worked for 10, 15, 20 years. But then suddenly, I'm not enjoying this work of the doctor. I must change my goal and change my profession. You're already not very young now already. Then you again, pursue a study or, things like this. So in this way, you're just wasting your life. So what I'm saying is, yes, for your earning, you need some money and other things, but then it's also important to, settle down at certain level. Otherwise, you will never be reaching the goal. You will be only just aspiring and working and then die without achieving anything. So the main goal is to be happy. As I said the other day, meaning of education is human flourishment. You should flourish each and every day. And then with that flourishment or mental happiness, then you can pursue the goal which you should plan properly, think properly. Okay.
Geshe-la, will you please take one more question from Susan?
Sure.
Do you still have the question? If you're here, you can unmute yourself. And
yeah, thank you. It's not a question. I just wanted to share something with all of our friends as a part of my practice when I'm trying to work on declaring my faults. And so I say in my mind, if I hear myself judging somebody, for example, if I say that person is so judgmental or so mean or something, I always add the sentence, just like me. And when I do that, I can immediately feel the impact of my thought. And it helps me to remind myself I don't want to feel that thought. I don't want that in my practice. So I just wanted to share that as a practical way to keep the teaching going through the day.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, La.
Geshe-la, do you have any comments?
No, I have no comment. I said all that needs to be said. So until we next Friday, be safe and be happy, and we'll meet again next Friday.
Okay, Geshe-la. Geshe-la, we're really very blessed that you're here, and I hope we will take all these teachings into the weekend and the week ahead, and the teachings will take over our practices. I hope that will come true for all of us. And thank you. With that, see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.